So, it has all led to this. The last of the original 4 seasons. The last of Fox Kids. The last frontier. Digimon Frontier. 2003's Digimon Frontier is one of those shows whose reputation precedes it. For many, this season is considered the last straw that broke Digimon, sending the series into a 4-year lull before Digimon Data Squad. But for as many that decry this series as being terrible, one could argue that there's an equally large group who consider this season one of the best the franchise has to offer. Perhaps it's time I give my perspective on this season. Yeah, so sorry to disappoint, but all that was a recording from my creator. See, he was interested in doing this review personally, but, well... Welcome to the deep web, gentlemons. I will not lie. The chances of your survival are small. Some may even turn against your friends as crypto slaves. But you have my word that I'll use my arcane gifts to ensure that your data is given unto Yggdrasil's embrace. This is the greatest reward, more than even Dogecoin, for the fate of your data is an eternal concern. Now come, follow me. Strike down the bored apes that rise against us. Allow me to find this Trailmon. I ask not for my own selfish reasons, but for the good of the server. In any case, I'm here to give well, I suppose a simulation of what the review would have looked like. With my own flair, of course. Though, I do feel a bit of a disturbance. I get a cameo appearance in the Henry Stickmin collection, so obviously I should be the PNG YouTuber. But no, the other guy gets it. Mark my word, Walter, I will make a proper appearance. It's probably nothing. Enough talk, let's get this ending started. Time code, do you guys actually look at that? Just curious. So our story begins with a kid running, checking his phone to see that he is running late to meet his destiny. No, I'm afraid it's not that easy. Though a death does occur, but that's for later. Right now, we have to go back in time. You know, for context. Meet our resident gogglehead this season, Takuya Kanbara. Currently, it's his brother's birthday, with Takuya bored out of his mind waiting for his father to arrive. Suddenly, he receives a text asking him if he wishes to start his destiny, or in other words, I want to play a game. Takuya accepts and is told that he has to make the 5 o'clock train. Seeing the time, Takuya races to his destiny. No, we already went over this. Takuya's destiny is not to die. Stop it. Like any good protagonist, Takuya makes it to the train, where he spots another kid with a cell phone acting similarly to his. More instructions are texted, with Takuya and the kid making their way to the elevator. There they descend to Anime 9 3/4 quarters. Oh sorry, those books aren't in vogue anymore, so I guess Anime Stargate, but with trains? Takuya notices all the other kids in the station, wondering if they've been called as well. Soon, a voice calls out, telling the kids to board the trains. We watch as some kids board the trains, both willingly and unwillingly, as the trains depart. Takuya, deciding its destiny, runs after one of the trains, boarding the machine as his destiny awaits. No, that was Tamers. Frontiers is a different series. Then again... So Takuya meets with the other kids. These include Zoe Orimoto, Tommy Himi, and JP Shibui Yama, voiced by Steve Bloom. As it turns out, each of them received the same text. Speaking of text, their phones morph into their detectors, their digivices. But what's this? Why no Digimon? Well, hold on, we have more important questions to ask. Like what happened to the other kids? Nah, it's talked about later. But the kids don't know that.
Are those ghosts?
Probably ghosts of kids that came here before. Oh!
The kids soon arrive at a train station in the digital world, being offloaded by a Trailmon who brings up something about the legendary spirits, whose importance in this series is inconsistent, and that applies to both the Trailmon and the legendary warriors. Seeing that they're no longer in Kansas, Tommy decides to cry and run on the tracks to try and return home. Takuya, being the hero that he is, goes after Tommy. Huh, the Skaven are here. That was a joke! I didn't mean for the Skaven to be here. Actually, this is Bokumon and Nemon. I want to say they're the comedic duo of this season, but not really. Anyway, Bokumon recognizes Takuya as a human, which he realizes means the legend of the legendary warriors is true. Unfortunately, there's more to the legend, which means no legendary warriors. Yet, Takuya is able to save Tommy, but not before the four fall down a level. Takuya's detector activates, revealing the legendary warrior of fire. Or, well, some statue of the legendary warrior. The Digimon that was attacking the group, Cherubimon, trust me, he's not important, tries to take the spirit but fails some personality test, catching fire. Takuya, the hero that he is, fights the Digimon before beseeching the legendary warrior to help, and in a way, help comes. That's right, people, the kids become Digimon this season. So basically like Power Rangers or Kamen Rider, only less Rita Repulsa and Colonel Zol and more, who's the antagonist this season? Cherubimon gets defeated, his code scanned and purified before being sent away in his egg form. With the threat defeated, Takuya reverts to a human and learns from his Digivice, which I forgot to say can talk, that he is a Digi destined for great things. But more importantly, he was the one that destined this.
Bullshit.
More on that later. So Bokumon explains a few things about the digital world, specifically about the fractal code. See, everything in the digital world is made up of the fractal code, and for the longest time, this code was not tampered with. That is, until Cherubimon became evil and began sending its lieutenants out to collect this code. By scanning the code, more and more of the world began to disappear, turning the once whole world into the 2B2T Minecraft server. When Takuya scanned Cherubimon, it freed the fractal code, allowing the world to heal. While Takuya and Zoe are interested in helping, JP convinces Tommy otherwise, secretly splitting the group. Back at the train station, the kid from before arrives. His name is Koji Minamoto. Currently, he is questioning what is going on, receiving no real answer from his detector. The only response he gets is a scanner that points him in the direction of his spirit. Back to JP and Tommy. The two bribe a Pagumon with candy for directions and then bribe a Trailmon with candy to take them home. Yeah, sorry kids, but it's only episode 2. The Pagumon returns, wanting more candy from the two, before chasing the two into the labyrinth's end of the world. Zoe and Takuya arrive to help the two, but it's ultimately Koji who saves the day. Something further referenced when Takuya becomes a Gunimon, the legendary warrior of fire. Sorry, forgot to say that. Not having Digimon partners makes this weird, before quickly reverting to a human. Instead, Koji gains the spirit of light, Lobomon, defeating the Pagumon, who digivolved into a Raramon, and saving the day. However, because Koji is the loner of this season, he leaves the group for his own reasons. However, the actions of him and Takuya convince Tommy and JP to stay with the group, well, except Koji. The group begin to explore the digital world by first going to the forest terminal. Following them is Bokumon and Nimon. In Bokumon's case, it's because he wants to learn more about the legendary warriors while also providing his services and knowledge. As for Nimon, I have no idea. Tacos? Well, soon enough, the group finds a village, with Bokumon's knowledge coming handy. He regales the story of the 10 legendary warriors and how back in the past, human and beast-type Digimon fought one another. The fighting continued until Lucemon brought peace to the world. But this peace did not last, as Lucemon began reshaping the world in his image. While many tried to resist Lucemon, it was ultimately the 10 legendary warriors that stopped the Digimon, sealing the fallen angel away. Afterwards, the 10 legendary warriors released their spirits into the world in case darkness returned. I guess darkness returned. The group gets ambushed by some Digimon, then befriend the Digimon, then fight the Digimon. It's all a test. Tommy gets the spirit of ice, becoming Kumamon. Next episode, the group are traveling when they reach a fork in the road. Zoe and Takuya have a fight, splitting the group. JP stays with Zoe, mainly because he has a crush on her. Tommy, meanwhile, goes with Takuya because Takuya is something of a big bro. So remember how they were supposed to go to the forest terminal? Zoe and JP meet some Floramon who are unhappy that their town has become a dead tourist attraction, probably because of that one dinosaur statue with the sniper. I mean, we did warn visitors against wearing red berets in front of it. The two try to help, but some Mushroommon decide to destroy things. Thankfully, the legendary spirit of wind is found, turning Zoe into a stripper. I mean, Kazimon. I'm sorry, we going with this? You sure? Okay, going to confuse the kids. Not like Renamon, but... However, because Kazimon is not Stanley's Stripperella, as played by Pamela Anderson, Kazimon gets defeated and has to be saved by Koji as Lobomon. Great first impression, Zoe. You are literally the only character who in their first episode of getting a spirit gets defeated. I feel like we should be angry at the writers. The group reunites, Koji leaves the group, and we get the next episode, which is basically JP gets his spirit, becomes Beetlemon, and yeah, that's it. But the action of the kids become known as a mysterious figure takes note that other legendary warriors have appeared. Next episode, the group decides to do some work for hire for some Shell Numamon. The group reunites with Koji, who is also working to help the Digimon. However, the Cherubimon act strange when they learn that the kids are legendary warriors. The next day, the kids wake up, bound and tied to a wall. The Cherubimon accuse the kids for being in cahoots with the legendary warrior that stole their females.
Land, get females, get sex, but leave before anyone changes their mind.
The group is confused, especially Pokemon, who points out that the legendary warriors are the good guys. The Cherubimon don't believe them until a legendary warrior appears.
You call me Grumblemon?
Meet Grumblemon, legendary warrior of the earth. The Digimon in question denies working with the kids, instead wanting their warrior spirits. A fight erupts before Grumblemon finds another spirit. In this case, it's the beast spirit of Earth. What's a beast spirit, you ask?
That's a good question.
Yeah, I have no idea. Regardless, this allows Grumblemon to slide evolve. No idea how useful this is. Into Gigasmon. Through his ill-defined advantage, Grumblemon is able to defeat the kids, taking the fractal code of the mountain. This separates the group again. Want to point out, this is only episode 6 of 50. You have no idea how slow this gets. So the next 2 episodes are filler, not really that important in what happens, but more of what is said. Takuya and Koji have to deal with Tommy being kidnapped. Takuya tries to explain to Koji what it's like to have a brother, with Koji commenting that he has no siblings.
I don't have any. Happy now?
But because the music is acting up and the camera made a close-up, there's something more here. But I'm sure it's nothing. Tommy gets saved because he decided to befriend a Monzimon. Or something. As for JP and Zoe, we get some important info on Zoe. See, Zoe spent most of her life growing up in Italy, or if you're in the Italian dub, England, or in the Spanish dub, France, for some reason. Because of different cultural norms, Zoe didn't fit in with the other girls, causing her to be ostracized and lonely. Think of it like this: while the rest of the girls were watching the opening of Lucky Star, Zoe was watching Winx Club. Anyway, something about accepting being different, blah blah, the group reunites. We then learn more about the spirit, specifically that each legendary spirit is made of 2 parts, a human part and a beast spirit part. What does that mean? Again, I have no idea. We get some hinting of Tommy longing for his mom, he gets placed in a nightmare, it gets resolved, and then Koji learns his beast spirit is near. However, the voice tells Koji he is not yet ready, but given he gets the beast spirit next episode, so Grumblemon has returned, trying to get the fractal code of this one area. Agatsumon is trying to get a spirit so that he may become a legendary warrior. Battle happens and Zoe loses her legendary spirit. I'll comment on this later. On the other hand, Koji is able to get his beast spirit, becoming Kendo Garurumon. Unfortunately, the fursuit proves too problematic and Koji is unable to effectively control his form. Grumblemon does get defeated but escapes with the spirits he captured. As for Koji, he starts to learn about teamwork, or something. Basically, by this point he's no longer going off on his own. Realizing the group needs help, they decide to get advice from a fortune teller.
Give the gypsies $10.
Actually, the Digimon they talk with, a Shamanmon, proves to be quite helpful, saying that Takuya and Tommy will have quite a trial. And then Grumblemon attacks, because of course he does, and is able to steal Tommy's legendary spirit.
Now where did this bitch come from?
So this unknown Digimon attacks, sending the Grumblemon into a retreat. The remaining kids with spirits decide to fight the new adversary when a Goonimon hears Shamanmon. He quickly realizes that this is the beast spirit of fire and that it's been hiding in Shamanmon's house. Convenient. The Digimon gets purified, allowing Takuya to slide Digivolve into Burning Greymon. But the plot demands more conflict as Takuya is unable to control his form. Koji and JP try and fail to stop Takuya. It isn't until Tommy steps forward and reminds Takuya of what he did to help him in a previous episode. Tommy, it's Takuya who's supposed to jump to danger to Digivolve. Oh, why do I even bother? Takuya gets stopped, sort of confirming Shamanmon's fortune? Just roll with it. So the kids decide the best thing to do is to stop Grumblemon and get their spirits back. Due to plot conveniences, most of the group gets trapped, forcing Takuya to fight Grumblemon alone. It gets resolved real fast. The big takeaway is that Tommy gets his spirit back and Takuya is able to capture Grumblemon's beast spirit.
That's good.
But is unable to retrieve Zoe's spirit.
That's bad.
Yeah, let's just say I have some problems with how this show treats Zoe. And we haven't even reached the worst of it. Grumblemon retreats while the kids continue on their way to the forest terminal? But I thought episode 4 wasn't when they got there? Really? Took them this long? We're in episode 12 of 50, over 50 of the way done. So the kids arrive at the forest terminal, convince a Sorcerermon, not to be confused with Wizardmon, that they are the legendary warriors. Sorcerermon shows them Seraphimon. Unfortunately, the Digimon is
Frozen today.
but the kids thaw him out. Freed, Seraphimon explains the story of Lucemon. So as said earlier, there was a war between beast and human-type Digimon. Lucemon stepped in, stopped the fighting, but got evil with power. The legendary warriors appeared, defeated Lucemon, and then gave up their powers in case there was a problem. In order to make sure there was order, 3 Digimon were chosen, those being Seraphimon, Beowolfmon, and Cherubimon. But Cherubimon became evil, lusted after power, and
War never changes.
yeah, I'm just gonna say it now, they keep drip feeding this story, so expect to hear this again later down the line. We also learn that the voice the group has been hearing is Ophanimon. Seraphimon says that once he and Ophanimon reunite, they will be able to defeat Cherubimon. So, remember Grumblemon? When Grumblemon retreated, he returned to the meeting spot of the other legendary warriors. These include Arbamon, the legendary warrior of wood, Mercurymon, the legendary warrior of steel, Ranamon, legendary warrior of water, DeviantArt, and definitely not Sock Puppet account for Renamon, and Golden Wolfman, leader of Shocker's Near and Middle Eastern branch, and persona of Colonel Zoll, the only Japanese SS member of the Third Reich. What's that? My apologies. Golden Wolfman is from Kamen Rider and not Digimon. And yes, he's a real character, I did not make him up. No, the final legendary warrior is Duskmon, the legendary warrior of darkness. Ah! I heard his name. My arch enemy. Divert the troops. I have unfinished business.
Wah, 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 wah.
You heard me! Divert the troops! Duskmon is priority target number 1. I'm sure it's nothing. So, the evil legendary warriors attack and defeat Seraphimon. So, Seraphimon was basically just the guy from Spy Kids 3D. That's good to know, but all is not lost as Zoe is able to get Seraphimon's egg. Doesn't make up for her not having a spirit Takuya, but it's something. Sorcerermon holds the villains back as the group escape on a Trailmon. Eventually the group encounters a Wamon. We learn it's here because of Grumblemon's scanning of the fractal code causing the large Digimon to get stuck underground. But freeing the Wamon is not the important thing. No, the important thing is that during a fight with Arbamon and Grumblemon, the group finds the beast spirit of Thunder, meaning JP can digivolve into the gun tank from Gundam. It has a name, but I don't care. Zoe's spirit gets returned and Grumblemon is defeated. Before you ask, no, the group does not get some special evolution or ally for defeating Grumblemon. That comes later. So, later, like, you have no idea. So the kids end up on an island that has a resort run by some Toucanmon. Ah! So it's the 4th season where they gave up on naming the Digimon. The Toucanmon comp the kids a vacation. Most of the group accepts, with Koji being a contrarian. Both make valid points between getting things done and having rest. We also get, well... yeah, this episode is infamous. I'll explain more when I talk about Zoe in the character analysis. What you need to know is that the Toucanmon have stolen the kids' detectors since they're part of Ranamon's fan club, or in other words, her simping assassins. Thankfully, Zoe still has her detector and digivolves into Kazimon. We get a fight between the 2 female characters, because of course we do, but the fight is briefly stopped due to Ranamon sensing her beast spirit. No, it's not... You know there's life outside of DeviantArt, right? No, it's Calmeramon. Unfortunately, Calmeramon is ugly, which causes the simping Digimon to leave. Calmeramon is also unable to really control her powers, causing her to blast off like Team Rocket. However, the day is not won as the kids, sans Zoe, realize they don't have their detectors. Thankfully, the Toucanmon are not too far off. Unfortunately, the Toucans have a plan. Since Ranamon is ugly, they want out of her fan club, but they have all this merch on hand, so they will sell it and the detectors at the local swap meet for Bitcoin. Or something. The kids initially give chase, but plot demands they help the Gomamon, which they do, and then they encounter Ranamon. But this is a good thing since Zoe finds her beast spirit and becomes a stripper again. I'm not... That's not a beast mode, that's fan service the Digimon. So the stripper who goes by the stage name of Zephyrmon defeats Calmeramon since Ranamon is still learning how to control her beast form. Unfortunately, the detectors are not found because the Toucanmon have left for the Autumn Festival, aka the swap meet. The group arrives, gets sidetracked, and we get a cameo from Takato.
Wish we could help.
So that's where he went. And Tommy finds the detectors in the hands of this Datamon. Long story short, Tommy is able to show how good of a heart he has, convincing the Datamon he is good, and Tommy then gets his beast spirit. The group then gets in contact with Ophanimon, who asks if they are ready. The kids answer yes, and the voice directs them to go to the Rose Morning Star. But first, we have an episode that's basically Wacky Racers, but with trains, and another where Arbamon is evil, because he kidnapped a burger chef. This is about the worst this guy does in the series. Verxer has done far worse than you, my guy. Speaking of Arbomon, the evil legendary warriors meet up at their lair in, we'll say South Jersey Shore, to give the fractal code they have collected to their Dark Master Cherubimon, who has finally made an appearance after 20 of 50 episodes. Seriously, we're like a third of the way done. The Digimon comments that he is surprised Mercurymon has not given the code to Seraphimon, but allows the master to hold it for now. The important thing is that Cherubimon wants the kids to be eliminated. Arbomon volunteers to carry the order out. Meanwhile, Mercurymon and Duskmon have a bit of tension, as Duskmon questioned Mercurymon's loyalty. Mercurymon counters by saying Duskmon has not joined the fight. Duskmon takes this into consideration, as the Shakespearean actor has a point.
Meanwhile,
Duskmon, I'm coming for you! Meanwhile, the kids arrive at the Dark Continent. Sort of. The Trailmon just dumps them off outside with Bokumon. Oh right, I forgot about him. And Nemon, bringing up how no one really returns from the Dark Continent. Well, one group did return. Anyway, the group enters the Dark Continent, briefly passes the Land of Darkness as Sonic fights Demon Eggman, and enter the Forest of the Dark Continent. After being unsettled, the group stumble on some peaceful Digimon. Bokumon is surprised such peaceful Digimon exist in such a place and decides to make it a point to record these things as well as write about the kids. I'm just going to point out that this really goes nowhere. While we're on the subject of Bokumon, you may have noticed that he is an egg. That is Seraphimon's egg from before. Basically, he's caring for the egg until Seraphimon returns. It's basically an excuse to have him act like he's pregnant. Really hoping he'd be a source of exposition, but here we are, making pregnant jokes. Also, Nemon is here. I got nothing to add. Back to the story. Arbomon attacks, loses his beast spirit, and runs.
What are you talking about? Yesterday's ally is today's enemy.
You're probably expecting me to make some comment that this confirms Duskmon as being a traitor, or that he has some ulterior motive going on. But no, I'm honestly more surprised at how little we know about Arbomon. He's gone and frankly I could care less. But finally, Duskmon enters the field and starts to fight the kids. He proves to be too much for the group, only being defeated when Takuya makes a lucky hit. Using the brief time they have, the group set up camp and begin to prepare for Duskmon's return. A plan of sort is hatched, one that basically involves trying to overpower the Digimon. Koji is not convinced it will work, but more importantly is concerned about Takuya. He asks Takuya a simple question: why is he in the digital world? Takuya answers that they're here to save it. Koji is not convinced Takuya understands that. He then comments that Takuya is rather hot-headed, not caring if he gets hurt. With that in mind, Koji makes Takuya promise that none of the other kids will get hurt. If he can't make that promise, he should go home. And then Duskmon attacks, the kids activate their plan and it fails. During the attack, Koji gets hurt and reverts to his human form. This causes Duskmon to start acting funny before engulfing the area in darkness, with the exception of Robotropolis. Sorry, just wanted to make a callback to an earlier review. Takuya wakes up in the Dark Terminal, seeing a Trailmon ready to take him back to the real world. Takuya boards the train, and we get, in my opinion, the best episode of the season. Which isn't saying much, but trust me, it's good. So Takuya returns to the real world. However, the spirit of Duskmon chases after him. Whether this is really Duskmon or some mental hallucination is not really explained, and honestly I think it's best to keep it that way. As Takuya runs, he soon realizes that he is not human. Somehow he has become a hybrid of human and Digimon. Technically he's a Digimon called Flamemon. This is the only time this Digimon appears, and it isn't even given a name. It's also the only time a rookie form of the legendary warriors is shown. But back to the story. As Takuya makes his way home, he soon realizes that he's been sent to the past on the same day he entered the digital world. Not wanting to return home because of Duskmon, Takuya does what he can to stop himself. 3 for 3! So Takuya fails to stop himself at every turn. It isn't until he follows himself on a train does he notice something odd. There's another kid that looks a lot like Koji. Tell me, Takuya, were you listening? Or looking at the woman in the red dress?
I was... again. Who is it?
Like I said, maybe this is all in Takuya's head, or maybe it's the digital world. Best to leave it up to you. As Takuya follows himself into the terminal, he spots the second Koji trip down some stairs, but not what happens next. As the elevator lowers, Takuya realizes that this is the last time to stop himself. As the trains are called, Takuya thinks for a moment. If he leaves now, his actions will affect his friends. Not only will all his moments with them be lost to time, but they'll be also placed into jeopardy. At that moment, Takuya understands what Koji meant by actions having consequences. With this in mind, Takuya urges himself to accept destiny.
Running away from destiny?
Wrong season! With the time loop made stable, Trailmon returns. Takuya demands to return to the digital world, despite the warning Trailmon says. With his lessons learned, Takuya returns as a Goonimon, now resolute to save his friends. So basically home away from home in Digimon Adventure, only not as well animated. Still one of, if not the best episode this season, and it's all downhill from here, folks. Takuya returns to the digital world, but because he's not Tai, and because we're close to halfway done with this show, he quickly finds the group, this time being forced to go through enhanced interrogation techniques.
Do your worst. I can take it.
You serious?
Behold, a glimpse into the horrors that is Elsa Gate. Seriously, YouTube needs to fix that. Koji isn't captured, but it's clear that he's still weak from his fight with Duskmon. But thanks to Takuya being there and finally learning to be in touch with his Digimon powers, whatever that means, the group fight off the evil legendary warriors. We then get some rather pointless episodes. Mainly JP, Tommy, and Zoe get some, well, I hesitate to say character growth. I mean, we learn that JP is lonely and has no friends when he fights his shadow self. Okay. For Tommy, we learn that his parents spoiled him with his older brother trying to make him understand that not everyone will be nice. Okay. And Zoe because her classmates ostracized her because she watched Witch and not Sailor Moon. Or something. Look, these episodes are kind of eh. There is, however, two big things of note. The first is Mercurymon. We learn rather quickly that all these trials the kids are going through are the results of Mercurymon placing the group in Beat Takeshi's castle.
Oh hey, the Jewish Tree of Life.
That's a thing? That's a thing? So yeah, Mercurymon is trying to get the spirits. Doesn't really work. More importantly is Ranamon. At some point, Ranamon entered Takeshi's castle and attempted to send her Sims to deal with Zoe. Obviously she failed and her spirit gets captured.
You were the chosen one!
As more and more of the obstacle course is dealt with, Duskmon decides to take to the stage, if only to figure out why Koji looks so familiar. He and Koji as Lobomon fight. Due to plot reasons, Koji's human and spirit forms merge into Beowolfmon. The two fight with some hints of more to come. But things are getting too interesting. Let's return to Takuya. Like any great leader, Takuya finally confronts the mastermind of this game show, Mercurymon. The Digimon, however, has gotten stronger, using Seraphimon's code to become Shadow Seraphimon. And while at first all seems lost, Takuya is able to pull a Koji and merge his human and beast spirit forms into Aldamon. Mercurymon is defeated and Seraphimon's eggs hatch into Patamon. However, Mercurymon is not yet defeated, as it turns out this Tree of Life thing is actually his beast form. I mean, it was revealed earlier, but let's be real, sounds cooler to reveal it now. Named Sakakumon, the Digimon states that he has copied the powers of all the legendary warriors, no doubt inspired by Eggman when he copied Sonic's life data. While initially a problem, the kids soon realize that Sakakumon can't copy multiple elements, and his central sphere is his weak point. He gets defeated.
Tinkleberg.
While this is happening, Duskmon and Beowolfmon finally end their fight with Duskmon remembering he is Koichi. See, earlier Koichi felt abandoned by Koji and his father. This anger led Cherubimon to him. Cherubimon, not wanting to lose his last pawn, buries Koichi's memories and implants the beast spirit of darkness, Velgamon.
But that's not important right now.
The fight causes Beowolfmon to return to Koji, causing Velgamon to stop. Or, well, Ophanimon stops him, reminding Velgamon of his human life and that Koichi is his twin brother. We get some unimportant filler episodes, and then Koichi and Takuya confront Duskmon. During the fight, Duskmon explains his backstory. Back in the real world, he and Koji's parents had a divorce. Due to how young the kids were, it was decided to just split the twins, which, looking back at TK and Matt, appears to be a common thing. I assume it's a legal thing, but honestly at this point I have no idea. This also led to some weird side effects. Since the kids were so young, they had no memories of their twin sibling. However, there must have been some miscommunication over the split because Koji's father thought it wise to tell his son that his mother was dead.
I'm getting better. No, you're not. You'll be stone dead in a moment.
However, Koichi's mom did no such thing. Instead, Koichi lived with the belief that their father abandoned them. Lesson for all those who get a divorce, get your story straight or else the Warrior of Darkness will come after you. However, this doesn't explain how Koichi knows Koji is his brother. Thankfully, that does get explained, after Duskmon gets defeated and the evil purified. You are not here that long. Why are you in Digimon Rumble Arena 2 again? So, Koichi, now kind of free from Cherubimon, explains more of his Spanish soap opera backstory. So on his grandmother's deathbed, she revealed to Koichi that her brother yet lived. This is the story we're going with. Dying grandmother. Revealing secret.
Bueno.
But now the question becomes, how did Koichi get to the digital world? Takuya partially answers this, as he does recognize Koichi from the day everyone got on the trains. Thing is, Koichi himself doesn't know how he got here. He didn't receive a message from Cherubimon, nor was he present in the terminal. All he recalls is tripping down some stairs, waking up in some weird place, and Cherubimon giving him the dark spirit. With things sort of cleared up, the three reunite with the side characters. The question on everyone's mind is, of course, Koji's brother, with the different kids giving their advice to Koji. Koichi, meanwhile, gets some sound advice from Patamon. Remember him? Patamon tells Koichi that the darkness doesn't have to be evil, unless you want to go down that dark path in Shadow the Hedgehog. Or something like that. There's then a confrontation with Cherubimon, who appears quite happy in seeing Koichi mastering the darkness. Koichi, however, doesn't take kindly that the Digimon used him. Cherubimon counters saying nah-uh and that he offered the spirit to many, but only Koichi was compatible. Koichi accepts this but states he doesn't want revenge anymore. Cherubimon attacks, Koichi gets a detector and digivolves into Lauimon. Don't get attached, he barely factors into the plot. One slight evolution later and Koichi kills Cherubimon.
That wasn't the real Cherubimon we were...
Or does he? In truth, the Cherubimon was a clone, the real one in another castle. Koichi decides to set out on his own to fix this mess. The kids refuse, saying they'll do this as a team as they set forth for the Rose Morning Star to save Seraphimon, with Cherubimon ready. Some speed bumps later, and the group meets up with this Digimon who Patamon vets as a friend. The Ram leads the group to Seraphimon. They try to free her, but prove unable. Seraphimon says don't worry, and then recounts the tale of Lucemon. So, after the legendary warriors defeated Lucemon, the legendary warriors gave up their power in case evil would return. At some point, Seraphimon, Cherubimon, and Ufanimon were given charge of the digital world and became known as the Celestial Digimon. Part of this charge was safeguarding the legendary warriors.
Trademarked.
The important part being that Cherubimon safeguarded the spirits of darkness, earth, wood, water, and steel, basically the evil legendary warriors. The three also represented different aspects of the digital world. Ufanimon represented love, Seraphimon law, and Cherubimon knowledge. While their lead of the world was peaceful, disagreements soon arose. This mainly had to do with Cherubimon concerned with the beast-type Digimon and how Seraphimon enforced laws on the Digimon. This soon came to a head when Seraphimon and Ufanimon met in private. Cherubimon saw the two and thought that they were conspiring against him. This anger caused Cherubimon to absorb some evil and ultimately pull a Horus heresy with the beast-type Digimon. During the fighting, Cherubimon was able to wound Seraphimon. Ufanimon pleaded with Cherubimon to spare the Digimon, and Cherubimon agreed by imprisoning Ufanimon. Wait, I thought Nurgle imprisoning Isha came before the Horus heresy. Well, now this just ruins my reference. Cherubimon then began collecting the fractal code, for some reason. Ufanimon decided the best course of action was to call out to the human world for 5 pure-hearted kids. She would have gone with teens with attitude, but Zordon already had that claim. With the story complete, for now, Cherubimon appears, gloats, and the fight begins. Goes about as well as you can expect. As Cherubimon collects the detectors of Koji and Takuya, the rest of the kids work on freeing Ufanimon. Unfortunately, Cherubimon is able to collect most of the detectors. Thankfully, Ufanimon gets free. A small fight happens, and then Ufanimon has a word. She says that there is enough fighting, and that there is still good in Cherubimon. She offers to return Cherubimon to good, and Cherubimon accepts.
It's a trap!
Ufanimon sacrifices by incapacitating Cherubimon, returns the detectors, and upgrades Takuya's and Koji's, and then she becomes an egg. The kids then realize that they need to use all of the spirits of the legendary warriors, and because Takuya and Koji are the important characters, they are given the other spirits, allowing the two to become Emperor Greymon and Magna Garurumon, while the rest of the kids become rendered unnecessary. There's a big fight, Cherubimon gets defeated, but not really.
Why won't you die?
Then something about Ice Devimon.
Hold your tongue, little creature! I simply wish to express my gratitude to those who freed me from that tiresome prison.
Who sounds like Christopher Walken. I'm sorry, no, just no. Though it does give me an excuse to use weapon of choice.
It won't attract the worm.
So after that, Takuya and Koji conduct one last final attack on Cherubimon. Cherubimon counters by absorbing the fractal data he has collected to become stronger. The fight continues with Cherubimon almost winning when he placed the two heroes in the training simulation from the Matrix. Doesn't last long. After checking to see if both are alright, Koji observes that Cherubimon's weak spot must be his forehead. Koji comes up with a plan where he basically tanks a hit so Takuya can make the final blow. Something about Takuya being stronger or something? The plan works, Cherubimon gets purified, dies, and the arc is finally complete. But since it's only episode 37 of 50, deep in, I assume, digital hell, we bear witness to Lucemon's stir. Dissatisfied that Cherubimon has failed, and that he shares the same name and inspiration as Lucy from Helltaker, Lucemon summons forth the Royal Knights to do his bidding. And by Royal Knights, I mean Crusadermon and Dynasmon. Look, this was the first time the Royal Knights were ever a thing, so Omnimon, Magnamon, and Gallantmon had not received an invitation from Nick Fury. Alright, so let's start wrapping things up. The kids begin to celebrate the destruction of Cherubimon, only to realize that the data Cherubimon collected has not returned. In fact, more areas of the digital world begin to disappear. Upon further inspection, the group encounters a Barrowmon. Initially hostile, the Barrowmon soon realizes that the legendary warriors are not behind everything going down the skibbity toilet, but he does take the time to tell the kids that Lucemon is back. The Digimon also states that the digital world is doomed and that there's no reason to save it, telling the kids to go home. Obviously the kids refuse, Barrowmon doesn't believe them, and then Crusadermon and Dynasmon appear. It's a pretty one-sided fight, which is to be expected with the Royal Knights. However, this does lead to a rather interesting observation. When the kids get knocked out, their data was present, ready to be scanned. All except Koichi. Before this can be dwelt on, Takuya and Koji defend their friends before being sent to the moon, an unintended side effect of Dynasmon's attack. As the group comes to, they do what they can to return to the digital world, mainly to stop the Royal Knights, and Lucemon, but also because of the threat from Eggman's. The group accomplishes this by learning that Burgermons come from the moon, and that the Burgermon from earlier immigrated to the digital world from the moon. One salvaged rocket later, and the group enters the digital world. Once home, the kids learn that more and more of the digital world has disappeared as the Royal Knights liquidate the planet. At Steel Town, the group encounters a rather odd scene: survivors of Order 66, which in current Star Wars canon isn't that unique anymore. Okay, jokes aside, these are a few of the kids that Ophanimon summoned. See, after the legendary warriors were found, Ophanimon ordered the kids to return, and to their credit, most of the kids did return, all except 4. Their names? Not important. What is important is that Ophanimon recognized that some of the kids stayed and kept trying to convince them to return. Eventually, an Angemon was dispatched to protect the kids. It's all well and good, except 2 of the kids are the bullies who placed Tommy on the train. Tommy, being a good kid, doesn't exact revenge. But in an alternate universe... Eventually, the Royal Knights appear, Angemon gets defeated, and the 4 kids plus Tommy get captured. Next episode, the kids get saved and make their way home on a Trailmon. The next 4 episodes follow a similar theme. The kids try to stop the Royal Knights, often with the help of friends they made in an earlier episode. Even the evil legendary warriors briefly help, but yeah, they never get close to stopping the Royal Knights. Makes me wonder how the real me is dealing with this. So, the trail's gone cold. I guess you're right, Dorumon. Hunting Duskmon was a folly. Still, you reminded Crusadermon and Dynasmon that you are Alphamon, which bought me some time. Still, I agree, this was a waste of time. Rally the Mons, we're returning to our original objective. What a waste. I'm sure he's fine. Eventually, the last region of the digital world is scanned and Lucemon makes their return. See, Lucemon is something of a control freak. They felt that the digital world was impure and needed to be reshaped in their image. While they were sealed away, their presence never fully went away as they slowly manipulated others to do their bidding. In the case of the Royal Knights, Lucemon promised the Knights the conquest of the human world. However, before this can happen, Lucemon orders their servant to end the legendary warriors. Speaking of which, by this point the kids arrive on one of the moons, because the digital world has 3 moons. There they encounter an egg sanctuary, and what do you know, Ophanimon and Cherubimon's eggs hatch to reveal Salamon and Lopmon. Yay, Salamon finally gets some screen time. But the Royal Knights arrive ready to finish the job. And of course they lose their code absorbed by Lucemon, who enters Chaos Mode, and for some reason looks like Alucard from Symphony of the Night. Lucemon pulls an Eggman and destroys the moon. The kids survive, which gives Koichi time to tell Koji something. See, earlier Crusadermon made a comment about Koichi not having fractal data. As it turns out, only beings with physical bodies have fractal codes, but Koichi has none, or at the least it's very hard to get. Point is, Koichi is dead. Yeah, I guess it's unique, but Also, Pokemon knows and tells the kids about Koichi's predicament, but the plot continues forward as our heroes still need to defeat Lucemon, who is now trying to enter the real world. Obviously, this is not a good thing since the world would be destroyed. Motivated to save their home, the kids prepare to fight Lucemon, and promptly get thrashed. But before Lucemon can deliver the final blow, Koichi sacrifices himself, being absorbed by the falling angel. But before being absorbed, Koichi implores Koji to reconnect with their mom. Koji agrees. This sacrifice empowers Takuya and Koji to become Susanomon, basically Omnimon. We get a big fight, Susanomon pulls a secret technique that Lucemon did not take into account and then gets defeated. I said he gets defeated. What do you mean this goes on? So the kids only scan Lucemon's good half, leaving his evil half behind, who promptly destroys the kids and makes its way to the human world. It sends a message out. You may choose to follow me or be destroyed. Yeah, no, this sounds more like a final episode kind of thing. Sorry, Lucemon, but Eggman's super laser thing was more threatening. Besides, if you really want to send a message, you do that with the 1812 Overture. Gotta love artillery. Adds dignity to what otherwise would be a messy brawl. So the kids despair that Lucemon is too powerful. Takuya tries to push some rubble away, and the legendary spirits appear to show that all is not lost. Botluck and Nemon are shocked at this, but hey, it's the final episode, we need some Deus Ex Machina, which we also get with the celestial Digimon giving tips. Trust me, the Machina does not end here. The kids unite into Susanomon, stop Lucemon, and pull the Digimon back into the digital world. Again, they defeat the Digimon, this time revealing Lucemon's larva form. The larva, not wanting to miss out on Utopia, tries to take Susano down with them. It fails, and the Digimon gets defeated for good. The kids have a chat with their spirits, surprised to see they have imprinted on the Digimon. However, because of the prophecy, which undermines the whole they made their sacrifice, they have to leave. Pokemon tries to join them, but has to be reminded that Digimon can't survive in the human world. Wait, doesn't that mean Lucemon would have died? That implies this whole ending is bullshit. So the kids return home with only minutes having passed. Lucemon's actions are chalked up to celestial discharge and not due to breaks in the Matrix. And all is well. Oh right, he died. Okay, so before the death, Lauimon tells Koji Koichi is still alive. They find Koichi in the hospital, dead. Like I said, Deus Ex Machina, he lives.
Koji?
The kids' detectives revert to their phones as the group set out to a brighter future, especially Koichi and Koji as Koji finally reunites with his mother. I want to say this is good, but given how messed up this family is, I highly expect this to enter the Secret Sister arc had the show gone on longer than 50 episodes. But thankfully it doesn't, and now the show finally ends. As you can tell, I don't like this season. There's just too many problems between the characters, story, voice acting, so let's begin with the writing. Right from the get-go, this show is slow. Very slow. So much of the early episodes are simply filler. Now, to the show's credit, the early episodes do give us some insight on the characters, and we are given a brief taste on how the digital world works and some of the key terms. One slight problem. None of this is ever really expanded upon. Like, what exactly does it mean to be a legendary warrior? It's clear that there's something about being a legendary warrior, but we're never told. What about the Trailmon? We know the Trailmon are important for travel, but why? Is there a specific reason the Trailmon do their job? What about the kids? What's their life like back at home? I get the idea that they're loners, but I know nothing about them. What about the villains? Why are they evil? Or what exactly is a beast spirit? Is it stronger? I don't know, the show never explains. There are a lot of leads to go off of, and the show does nothing with them. We have so many episodes where there's build up to something, but no payoff. Part of the issue I feel is how the filler episodes add nothing to the plot. We could have had some world building, like the Trailmon race episode. Maybe have it explained that it's to commemorate how one of the legendary warriors was kind of nasty and how the Trailmon helped save some Digimon. Maybe reveal that warrior was a Goonimon, and how by the end Takuya's actions helped make up for what the Digimon did. Or maybe with the Island of Misfit Toys. Maybe show that the legendary warrior of Ice used to frequent the island. So Tommy playing with Monzimon shows how Tommy is a good fit for the legendary warrior of Ice. These episodes should have helped build our understanding of the world and the legendary warriors. Indeed, the lack of understanding of the legendary warriors is a big problem. Early on, we see Takuya use his powers out of line. Maybe what could have happened was that Takuya uses his power, he becomes Flamemon, still having the power, but it's clear he's not representing what it means to be the warrior of fire. That way, when he returns to the human world as Flamemon, it's to show that something is wrong, that Takuya is not exhibiting traits of the legendary warrior. Instead, it just feels like the kids are given powers and that's it. Which I guess works in Super Sentai, but this doesn't feel like Super Sentai. And by Super Sentai, I mean Power Rangers. You know, a team of kids saving the planet from a monster with mild-mannered gymnastics. Except here, the team is saving the digital world. But why is the digital world important? Why couldn't the kids still be protecting Shibuya? Like, say the digital beings appear, the kids become Digimon, save the day, rinse and repeat. Then have the kids enter the digital world and maybe learn that their human forms are weaker and gain beast forms. But then learn that their beast forms scare humans and is somewhat uncontrollable. As is, I have no stakes, no contexts, and I have no idea how any of this works. And that's a problem. Compare this to previous seasons, with the exception to Tamers because Tamers is kind of unique. In Adventure in 02, we have things explained to us. In Adventure, it was from the Digimon partners. In 02, from the veteran characters. Heck, in Sonic X, the characters explain the rules of how Sonic works. But Frontier? Barely anything. Why can't the spirits talk to the kids explaining things? Oh, because we have Botluck and Nemon? Well, guess what? Neither are really talking. And remember, Botluck has that book of everything, but it never comes up. In effect, I'm learning nothing about anything, making me lose interest. No joke, while I was watching for the review, I got so bored I started watching tutorials on YouTube about how to flick cigarettes. I want to point out I don't smoke and I have no intention to start any time, and yet I was more interested in learning that than watching Frontier, and that's a problem. Nothing about this show grabs my attention, nothing's explained, and it takes way too long for anything to happen. There is no reason for Cherubimon to take 20 episodes for them to finally appear. Heck, there's no reason for the evil legendary warriors to appear as late as they did. I want to say the show does have some neat ideas. I think the kids becoming Digimon is an interesting concept. I like the idea of the Cherubimon having some importance in this world. I like the idea that darkness doesn't have to be evil, but the execution is terrible. And then the characters. Normally this is the part of the episode where I go in depth with the characters, starting with my favorite and ending on the worst. The issue here is that there's so little about the characters that most of my analysis will be, what did the character do?
I didn't do fucking shit!
I'm not joking about this. Here, let's start with Takuya, our resident gogglehead this season. What makes him special?
Fuck if I know.
All we know of his past is he has a brother, and that's about it. He doesn't seem to do sports, no idea what he does in school, and I really don't know what his opinion on net neutrality is. He's bland. I mean, yeah, he's a leader and keeps the group together, but so does Ty and Davis. What makes Takuya unique to I almost caused my sister to die of pneumonia Ty and Goofy Goober Davis? Honestly, nothing. At most there's Takuya's am I really a leader shtick, but that's only relevant in 2 or 3 episodes. Closest we get is his interactions with Tommy and Koji, what with Takuya being a big brother and whatnot. But that's about it. Which is what makes the episode Home Again Takuya Returns feel kinda disappointing. Could have showed how brave he is or how heroic he is or something. Instead, he's kind of a blank slate. Next of the forgettables is Tommy. Now with Tommy we know a bit more. He's the youngest of the group, so it's interesting to see him being scared early on and then slowly become braver. That's fine and all, but his whole his parents spoil him thing makes no sense. I can understand that it makes him naive and gullible, but that's not really the case here. It's just, oh yeah, Tommy's afraid of things and wants his mother. Not a bad thing for writing, but maybe make it more that his parents are very protective to the point that Tommy gets scared easily. That way his growth as a legendary warrior is him becoming braver. And I do appreciate that we do see this growth throughout the season, but explaining that him being scared is because he was spoiled may be the wrong call. There's also his brother who's just kind of there. Okay, to be fair, he does bring up that Tommy is being spoiled, but that's about it. Tommy's not the worst of the season, but far from the best. JP, yeah, I got nothing. His whole thing is he has no friends, which could be an interesting character trait, except that apparently that's the case with everyone here. Everyone is lonely. Apparently. Yeah, I got nothing. It's honestly kind of embarrassing that I have more to talk about with Cody from O2. You know, the kid who's literally white bread? He has more character than JP. In fact, you could probably replace JP with Cody and increase the writing of the show by 5%. To be fair to JP, they do bring up his interest in Zoe. I mean, Zoe doesn't reciprocate, so what's the point? What I'm saying is JP is a pointless character. He doesn't really add anything to the story. Maybe if we learned more about him, I would change my opinion, but as is, Only other note is a comment from my artist saying that they personally hate how he dresses. I can see it. Now we get to Koji and Koichi, where we will change things up because of their unique connection. I liked Koji. I liked how he quickly became accustomed to the digital world, more or less figuring things out on his own. I liked how he was willing to remind the group of their current situation. He was the Matt of the group, willing to bring up criticisms of the gogglehead, but at the same time he was willing to accept when Takuya was right at times. He wasn't a rival, more of a straight guy to Takuya's wise guy, if that makes any sense. Shame Takuya is his counterpart. I kind of wish Koji was the main character of this season. The show does place a lot of emphasis on him, which once Koichi enters the scene makes sense. The two are meant to work off of one another. Brothers slowly learning of one another and the reality of the Spanish soap opera that is their family life. The only issue is that Koichi doesn't have much other than being Koji's brother and his whole how did he get into the digital world thing. Not bad, but I wish we had more of the two brothers fighting early on. I will get more into that with Duskmon since it's more relevant there. What I will say is that Koichi needed more substance to him. Neat end concept, but like many things of this season, poor execution. But yeah, Koji is the GOAT of this season, which isn't that hard given the competition, but man did he make a presence. And then Zoe. Oh boy, Zoe. I liked Zoe as a character. I thought her backstory of growing up in a foreign land, take your pick, and then being ostracized by the other kids in her home country was rather relatable. At least for me. That despite this, she was still friendly and trying to make friends with the other kids. I also appreciate she wasn't exactly a love interest for the rest of the cast, even JP. So why then do I consider her one of the worst characters this season? Why do I dislike her? Because she's literally here just for fan service. Remember that Toucanemon episode, the one that I said I had an issue with? Let's look at that scene again. In it, Zoe's looking at swimsuits. The first one, she comments that it makes her look like a race queen, which if you know anything about race queens...
I am uncomfortable.
The next one, standard Japanese school swimsuit. In the English dub, she says she will look like a sports model, but in the Japanese dub, a glamour model.
I don't like where this is going.
And then there's the final swimsuit, which was censored in the English dub, but in the Japanese dub she comments she will look like a sexy dynamite, with this shown.
Ah, it burns!
Yeah, but let's get even more uncomfortable. Her rivalry with Ranamon? Literally, Ranamon is concerned that Zoe is prettier. Not that she is on opposite sides or that it's a fight of good and evil, just she's prettier. Or how about that scene with Takuya in the dream world? She's right there, acting like the two are dating, even though that has never been implied that the two have any interest in one another. Are her Digivolutions? I mean, I grew up with Winx Club, so this is pretty much on par with that, though her becoming Kazimon is concerning on camera placement. Or her Beast Mode, which looks like Kazimon was in the middle of a costume change and quickly had to go on stage because the Anarchy sisters finished their pole dance way too early. Stanley Stripperella, as played by Pamela Anderson, is currently giving Stanley a private show, and Ricardo hasn't been seen since his plane went missing. Hope he's alright. Now you may be asking, why am I bringing this all up? What could possibly be the problem? She's in the 5th or 6th grade, meaning she's between the ages of 10 to 13.
Now give them hell!
Yeah, you can see my problem. Zoe was not really written as a character to empathize with. She was added in for fan service and little else. Oh sure, she has an interesting backstory and character, but that means so little when you factor in things like the swimsuits and her Digivolutions, which again, I have to remind you are not separate Digimon, but her. This gets especially egregious when you compare Zoe to the previous female leads. Mimi and Sora were never used as fan service in Season 1. Kari and Yoli never had this issue in 02. I guess one could argue Rika had this when she was Sakuyamon, but then again you can argue that was more of her accepting her femininity, so... What I am saying is Digimon tends to avoid fan service. For the kids. The Digimon... Okay, they may have a problem with that, I admit. Now you may be asking, what if they changed her design? What if they used her clothing from the camping flashback, or made Zephyrmon less stripperific? Here's the thing, the issue is not her design. The issue is how Zoe is written. If you wanted an example of how Zoe should have been written, look no further than Mimi and Tri. In Digimon Tri, Mimi returns to Japan and starts school. At the spring festival, her club decides to do a cafe like they always do. Mimi chimes in that they should spice things up by taking inspiration from legally distinct Hooters. The club disagrees, deriding Mimi for speaking out of term and sees that she's being too American. The arc ends with Mimi getting confidence from Mako as the two go ahead with the Hooters-esque idea. Story ends with the club seeing this is a good idea and that next year they'll try it. Now to be fair, Mimi has the advantage of being present in Adventure in 02, so we already know her character, but you see my point. Mimi has a character. Any fan service she had came as an afterthought and even then worked both the character and story. Zoe, not so much. Zoe is the biggest disappointment of this season of the main cast. We can see glimpses of what her character could have been. Instead, it's drowned out by her fan service. If you ask me, there needed to be a secondary female lead to balance out Zoe, which gets funny when you read about Koji, but that's for later. Also, Zoe's whole speaking Italian thing doesn't add much. Personally, I think they should have dropped it. So now that that rant is over, let's talk about the villains and how disappointing they are. The evil legendary warriors were a mixed bag. The issue is that the group lacks any real motivation for being evil other than that they're the warriors Cherubimon had, but they needed more justification. Grumblemon kind of works since you can argue he is evil because he is gluttonous, but remember he is a legendary warrior of the earth. Maybe because of that he feels he has dominion over everything, that because he represents the earth he should have the right to form it in his image. But no, he just eats for power. Ranamon was interesting, if only because her reason for being evil was vanity. That can work, especially since she does have an army of simps, but she does so little to the plot that she becomes an afterthought in her last appearance. Maybe she could have been present till the end of the show, becoming an unlikely ally as she leads her fan club against Lucemon and the Royal Knights. Instead, she just dies. Mercurymon was another interesting character. He wasn't that active even when he appeared, but you got the idea that he was making observations of the situation, that he had an ulterior motive.
Tinkleberg!
In the end, it's just power, but maybe he could have been used to see between the lines. Perhaps he was noticing something was coming and was prepared to stop whatever that was. Instead, he just dies, and that's it. And then there's Arbormon.
Hey, where is Arbor Day?
Seriously, why was he evil? If you ask me, the evil legendary warriors should have been warlords, each of which had their own motive for taking over the digital world. That it was Cherubimon that forced them all to unite against the kids. As is, they're kind of wasted. You may have noticed I did not bring up Duskmon. This isn't because I'm still salty with how overpowered he is in Digimon Rumble Arena 2. Although any reason to throw shade at him I will take. I'm sorry, Schmuck Squad. No, it's because of how little he does anything. He is built up to being this powerful lieutenant, someone who you do not want to cross, and that he's Koji's brother.
You gotta admit, this is cool!
Instead, he just appears 3 times and then gets redeemed. Maybe, I don't know, have him appear as early as possible, even if he's just observing. Build up his rivalry with Koji. Maybe he recognizes the kid and has some unspoken anger? I don't know, something. Anything to make Duskmon actually seem like a personal threat to Koji, someone that Koji has to confront, as is another waste. Cherubimon was not necessary. I get their whole thing of wanting to protect the beast-type Digimon, I really do. The issue is that this doesn't really affect the story. There is no antagonism between beast and human-type Digimon, at least none that I can see. Perhaps if the story showed us how human-type Digimon are ostracized by Cherubimon, then maybe we might have something, which apparently is the case with the movie, but as is, Cherubimon is kind of a flat villain. It also doesn't help it takes him so long to actually appear. No joke, I had to double check to make sure I didn't miss him being referenced. At most he gets talked about in the first episode in passing, and then poof, here he is. He needed to appear earlier, make his presence known. Without that early presence, he just fades into the background. The Royal Knights are they feel like a throw-in villain, which makes sense, they are the penultimate villain before Lucemon. And I do appreciate that they wipe the floor with the heroes, forcing the cast to fight tooth and nail to stop them. My issue is their reason for fighting, which is to invade the human world. But that goes counter to what Bokumon says, that the Royal Knights are heroes. Maybe make it that the Royal Knights are being misled, that they're preparing for a great evil but assume that the great evil is the human world, or something. As for their character, forgettable if I'm to be honest. They did their job and that was it. Kinda disappointing, but at this point I kind of expect that of this season. And then there is Lucemon, who I have mixed opinions on. I like the direction of having a Lucifer-esque villain, someone who's been manipulating things from the shadows. A villain that isn't seen until you put things together do you realize everything. And with Lucemon, they almost got that right. The issue is that they reveal Lucemon way too early. The Royal Knights name-dropping Lucemon was a mistake. That punch of Lucemon returning to the world becomes mute when we already know he's coming. Lucemon needed to be built up, a villain from the past that most people assume is a myth. No one expects him, much like the Spanish Inquisition. How Lucemon should have been handled was that every villain in this season was manipulated, Cherubimon becoming evil, that being Lucemon toying with his heart, the evil legendary warriors tempted by their desires, with the exception of Mercurymon who recognizes something isn't right but not enough to know who is behind everything, the Royal Knights misguided on who the evil really was, blinded by Lucemon's temptations. You can even go further by saying that everything was part of the plan. Cherubimon becoming evil? Check. Seraphimon bringing the kids in? Also check. Koji and Koichi fighting? Yep. The Royal Knights destroying things? Absolutely. Bringing back Kane and reforming the Brotherhood of Nod?
Yes.
Yeah, no, that was Kane's plan. And you played your role well, Lucemon. But joking aside, Lucemon was an alright villain. He was hinted at earlier what with the story and statue, unlike Apocalypmon and Myotismon, but his earlier reveal with the Royal Knights deflates any intrigue and mystery. By the end, Lucemon is just buying time. Side character-wise, it's kinda weak. The Trailmon are kind of all over the place. They're used as traveling around the world, but because we get a different Trailmon every episode, we don't have any real connection to these guys. We do see something with Dark Trailmon in the Takuya Returns episode, but never again. The gang needed a Trailmon that only they used. A Trailmon that was an unofficial member of the group, someone we can latch onto. As is, maybe best if he was just regular trains. Seraphimon and Ophanimon, not much here. Seraphimon does so little in his first appearance it's kind of a joke. He does reappear as Patamon, and there are hints he has memories of his time as Seraphimon, but they also imply that he isn't Seraphimon. He needed consistency. Maybe that he still has Seraphimon's memories, but being Patamon has made him realize that maybe Cherubimon was right or something. As is, he's just there. Ophanimon stole Bokumon's place. I get the whole she's the voice in the Digivice, but she soon becomes the voice that explains everything. What is she, a VTuber live streaming all this? Wait, hold on. Huh. Apparently Lilithmon is just an Ophanimon that fell. Maybe she is a VTuber. But my issue is that by having her explain things pulls from Bokumon. Maybe best she was just a voice or something else. Speaking of Bokumon, well, let's hold on that thought. Trust me, I have a reason. The next the sidecast are the sidecast. On occasion, the kids encounter other Digimon who exist. They more or less play like the side Digimon in Adventure No. 2, characters to add to the story. Nice that they get appearances by the end, even if they are forgettable. One unique group of side characters are the human kids. They only make an appearance in 2 episodes near the end, but they could have added to the digital world. Perhaps, as the main group explores, they encounter a kid who stayed behind, perhaps someone who is misguided into thinking that they are a legendary warrior, or maybe the kid has a Digimon partner and the two are trying to keep the peace, something to show how the main cast has grown, which to be fair they do with Tommy, so I'll give them a pass, it's something. And then we have Botluck and Nemon. Oh, poor Botluck and Nemon, what did this show do to you? Okay, so in theory, Botluck and Nemon are supposed to play multiple roles. Story-wise, they're the exposition and Greek chorus. Botluck explains what a Digimon or concept is, and Nemon makes some funny misunderstanding. At other times, they're the Greek chorus, commenting on the situation that is present, cluing the viewers. And at others, the two are a slapstick comedy duo. Traditional manze with Nemon playing the funny man and Botluck playing the straight man. These guys aren't important, but they add to the overall feel of the story. So how does the story use these two?
I have no idea!
I don't get how they mess these two up. You have the perfect team of exposition characters, a pocket lore dump right when you need them. Does the show use them? Nope, just use Cherubimon, cause why not? You can just have her voice come from the devices, why bother with the Digimon that has the book of everything? Well, what about Greek chorus? Surely they make some interesting comments. Rarely, but more often than not it's the other kids, since more often than not only a few of the kids are in Digimon form. Slapstick? What slapstick? Sure they fight, but only just. Instead, let's make some pregnancy jokes for Botluck because he's caring for Patamon's egg. It's a shame because we're told early on that Botluck is recording the legendary warriors and later the kids themselves. So maybe this entire show is Botluck recounting the events. But here's the thing, these two characters barely amount to anything in this story. They don't add anything, they don't make a lasting impression, and honestly they could have been dropped. Here's the thing, when I went into this season I was expecting to hate these two, that their slapstick would have ruined the story, but in their early interactions I liked that Botluck balanced out Nemon. The two worked amazingly, they had a dynamic I liked, so to see these two be wasted in such a way infuriates me. I hope this is a localization thing and not how these two were in the Japanese dub. And I do hope that this is the case. I'm hoping that my issues with these characters is due to the English dub and that the Japanese dub has better writing, because otherwise, oh boy, what happened? But we do have some light at the end of the tunnel, presentation-wise. Mostly. By this point, the series has more or less moved away from the watercolor effects of Adventure and O2. We have a more consistent background style going into this time around. Not a bad thing on its own, but the lack of any flair does make the scene kinda bland. I don't get the feeling that the digital world is its own place. That being said, we do get different locales, each with different designs ranging from forests, towns, and a few castles. It gives a reused set feel, but one where each set has its own identity, which becomes useful by the end of the series as the kids return to some locales. Makes the world feel like an actual world and not just a forest with some random garbage thrown around. I also enjoyed the soundtrack this time around, or at least the opening theme in Digivolutions. The tribal drum beat is certainly unique, though it feels too Disney, if that makes any sense. I don't know, it's in your face, works, and it's a neat departure from the previous seasons. And in my opinion, better than the Japanese opening. Look, I get it has its fans, but it reminds me too much of Sunset Hills from Sonic Heroes. But overall, a decent OST. Character design wise, we start to see issues, outside of what we already have with Zoe. We have some good color coordination with the characters having a primary color associated with their Digimon form. It's Super Sentai-esque and feels forced, especially compared to the previous seasons, but it gets the job done, for the most part. No idea why Zoe has a hat that makes it look like she has cat ears, especially since her Digimon form is a more fairy harpy-esque design. And speaking of the Digimon, their designs are pretty bad. I mean, let's look at the standard forms the kids become. We have Power Ranger, Kamen Rider, Power Ranger, Kumamon, who looks like an actual Digimon, and something Stanley Stripperella. My issue is that these Digimon feel more like Super Sentai characters, which would be fine, except this kind of clashes with the Digimon we see on screen. They kind of get better with the beast forms than the evil legendary warriors, but then go back to the costume heroes in the final forms. Yeah, my thumbnail artist brought up how much detail the Digimon had. And yeah, I agree, it's a bit much. Kumamon is fine, but the rest are problematic. I get the kids are becoming the Digimon, but come on, we needed some better designs. And the evolutions... I do admit these do look awesome and well done, I just miss the low poly PS2 renders used in the previous seasons. Yes, it looked like off-brand reboot animation, but it was still cool to watch. But where the show really seems to have had trouble was the voice cast, so let's dive into that. Michael Reese returns, this time playing Takuya. Perfect casting, though nothing too unique voice-wise. Fun tidbit, David Wittenberg would take over voicing Takuya by the movie. Had to do with the voice of the Digimon causing stress on Michael Reese's voice to the point he opted to not voice Asanamon. This would in turn result in David Wittenberg to take over. Honestly, I hear no difference. Steve Staley plays Koji. Again, good casting, nothing bad here. Works well as the voice of this series, Matt. Steve Bloom plays Scout Sergeant Tarkus. I mean Yar, I mean Jamie, I mean JP. Not his best role. Few times he sounds like he's just using his regular voice, but otherwise he got into the role well enough. Brianna Siddell voices Tommy. She had some problems early on sounding too much like Kulamon in the first few episodes, but like Steve Bloom gets into the role nicely and voices a believable young boy. Crispin Freeman voices Koichi. He was kind of sounds a bit close to Koji, which given that they are twins, I guess works. Brian Bucock returns as Bokumon, a little high-pitched in the early episodes, but turns it down a bit by the end. Good casting. Michael Surge as Nemon, excellent casting, works well as comic relief, just wish he had better lines. Antagonist-wise, we have Derek Stephen Price as Grumblemon and Dynasmon. They're alright, bit too gimmicky with Grumblemon. Richard Cancino as Arbormon was a thing. This is more of an Arbormon thing, the character really doesn't do that much. Darren Norris, good fit, almost did not recognize him, which given he's just using Timmy's dad's voice but with a Shakespearean-esque vocabulary says something about this man's acting skills. Paul St. Peter as Cherubimon was same with Melody Spevek as Crusadermon. Mona Marsha as Lucemon was a surprisingly good choice. Gave the character a good androgynous sound to their voice. I like it, even if it's basically just Izzy's voice. Still think it works well. Peggy O'Neill as Ranamon with her Southern Belle voice had me going,
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
No joke, I did not recognize her. Thought Vivian Nuxon was voicing her with some variation of Millie's voice from Hell of a Boss. Kind of gimmicky, but I guess it works. Michelle Ruff as Zoe, I don't know. Her line delivery early on was not great, and she was the last of the cast to really get into her role. On top of that, Michelle's voice shares the reason I'm not a fan of Ruby Rose's voice in RWBY. It sounds like an older woman trying to sound like a young girl, but not getting the tone right. It's noticeable to the point that, at least to me, made Zoe stand out in a bad way. The rest of the side cast was decently alright, but overall this was not a good foot forward. We have some talented voice actors here, I just get the feeling they weren't given good lines or direction. In fact, I kind of wonder if a good chunk of my issues with this voice cast is due to poor voice direction. But I guess now is as good a time as any to talk about the production side of things. So Frontier's production was a direct response to the times. Mon-style anime was on the decline, and it also didn't help that Tamers didn't do so well in Japan, necessitating a change in direction. The original idea was that there to be a tournament going on with the kids to be a part of it. Rather than have the kids use their Digimon to fight, it was decided to adapt the biomerge idea from Tamers and have the kids merge with their Digimon. The kids would also be using VR, so something like Chaotix. Actually, a Digimon VR fighting game sounds awesome. Would be a change of pace from Into the Radius. Anyway, at some point the concept was dropped, with the idea now being that the kids simply become the Digimon to fight as a team similar to Super Sentai aka Power Rangers, though I suspect elements of the old concept did survive, such as the show's logo, which oddly reminds me of Sonic the Fighters. But that's neither here nor there. The only other thing of note was Koji. Apparently during development, Koji was to be a girl. However, this appears to have been dropped as a female lone wolf character with a canine Digimon was too similar to Rika from Tamers. Personally, I think this should have been kept, if only for Koji to be a counter to Zoe, but that's just me. You know what? No, I want Renamon 2.0. Toei, you robbed us. How dare you? No, I'm alright, Doraemon. It's just, I feel a disturbance, like an unnecessary rant on Renamon. Pedal to the metal, we have to get back to the real world ASAP. Other than this, the show appears to have had nothing wild happen, with broadcasting starting in April of 2002 in Japan. But in the US, well, things got complicated. So by the early 2000s, Fox wasn't doing so well financially. Due to a drop in viewership, it was decided to sell Fox Kids to Disney. This is important since by this point, Saban had pretty much become Fox Kids. When Disney bought Saban, they also accepted Saban's contractual obligations, such as providing a dub for Digimon Frontier. Thing is, Disney had no real interest in Digimon, they simply wanted ABC Family. So with this in mind, Disney simply rebranded Saban into Sensation Entertainment, again to just fulfill a contractual obligation to provide a dub to the second half of Digimon Tamers and Digimon Frontier. In fact, Sensation Entertainment would be shut down once this obligation was completed. They didn't even dub the movie before being shut down. Outside of this, there doesn't appear to have been anything wild during the production. Digimon Frontier would air on UPN and ABC Family, with reruns appearing on Jetix. This caused a bit of a problem when it came to viewership. For those who don't know, this is called channel hopping. Basically, Basically, when a show switches channels, it tends to have a sharp drop in viewership and ratings, which makes sense. The old network isn't going to advertise where the show went, and the newer channel might not have the same interest in the show as the old network. There's also the fact that fans might like the other shows on the old channel. In the case of Fox Kids, Digimon aired along the sides of... okay, let's see here. Mystic Knights of Turnanok. No, wait, that was 1999. Oh, they had Galador. What else they had here? Ripping Friends, Alienators. Wow, Fox Kids didn't have shit by the end, did they? Point is, it's detrimental to a show. And in Frontier's case, look, I'm not saying Frontiers would have done better on Fox Kids, but what I am saying is that moving the show to another channel no doubt harmed the series in the ratings. But as I said, Disney really didn't care about that. They just wanted ABC Family. Digimon was just Lanya. The only other noteworthy element was a proposed sequel called Digimon Force 3. Supposedly, it was set 100 years after the original and involved 3 factions fighting for control. Concept didn't go anywhere, it is what it is. Guess we now go into Legacy. Legacy-wise, Frontier is odd. Upon release, the series didn't do that well. Not surprising given that Mon-style anime were on the decline, the series was a major departure from what came before, more so than Tamers, the channel hopping from Disney. Point is, the series didn't do that well to the point that many fans consider Frontier the reason Digimon had its 4-year lull till Data Squad. Well, I mean, there was the X-Evolution movie, but that's beside the point. As expected, there was a V-Pet tied to the series. Game-wise, the characters are the main fighters in Digimon Battle Spirit 2, Flamemon, Neemon, and, much to my chagrin, Duskmon make appearances in Digimon Rumble Arena 2, and in Digimon Races for the GBA, Agunimon is unlockable. Media-wise, 3 audio CDs were published. These are Digimon Frontier Original Story, Things That Want to Be Told, A Train Named Hope, and Part 4 of the Digimon Series 1-4 Original Story Special with CD. As far as I can tell, these CDs don't really add much to the story. Some manhwas and books also got published, including a short sequel that got cancelled for rights reasons. There was a crossover with V-Tamer, the Digimon PSP adventure game, and Digimon Fusion. We also had the movie Digimon Frontier Island of Lost Digimon, which I one day hope to review. In more recent times, the Frontier cast did make an appearance in the BT7 set of the TCG. Special note to Tommy, who got limited to 1 card a deck due to being overpowered. This would eventually be overturned, making Tommy one of the first cards to be unrestricted. Quite impressive for the kid. Other than that, Bokumon and Neemon make a few appearances in other series, sometimes together, sometimes not. And Lobumon's rookie form Cherubimon would make its debut anime appearance in the 2020 anime. But you may be wondering, Walter, this doesn't seem odd. Why did you say this series had an odd legacy? Well... Greetings, Snipe and Wibs lawyers and members of the fandom. Welcome to another exciting episode of Bootleg Compliant. Today we'll be talking about the different groups that exist in Digimon. One interesting element about Digimon that is often brought up is that there are different groups and organizations that exist. Some famous examples include the Royal Knights, the 7 Demon Lords, the Olympus 12, D-Brigade, the Banchos, so on and so forth. While these groups don't appear in all media, when they do, they usually indicate a story beat or some familiarity. For instance, if the Royal Knights are present, expect the group to be fractured over a hot button issue with Alphamon usually standing off to the side. Sometimes Yggdrasil, or King Drazel as it's known, also makes an appearance, usually as an antagonist. If you spot one of the 7 Demon Lords, like say Lucemon, you know that these guys are probably the antagonist of the story, with Beelzemon maybe switching sides a la Tamers. Or perhaps the characters will encounter Minervamon, who is talking about Dianamon. Knowing that both are of the Olympus 12, you already know that the two have some connection. In essence, these characters are almost stock-esque, providing an easy fill-in for storytelling since fans will already know the connections these Digimon have and how they'll affect the story. Now, you may have noticed I have brought up 2 familiar groups, the Royal Knights and Lucemon. That's because in recent media, these two have gone on to make names for themselves. The Royal Knights in particular are noteworthy since they're used in so much of Digimon media. Data Squad used them, the X-Evolution film featured them, hell, try had Alphamon, Jesmon, and Yggdrasil make appearances. In the case of Lucemon, he usually appears as a villain because, well, he's Lucifer. But what about the legendary warriors? In show, they're stated to be some of the earliest Digimon that saved the world. Surely they have influenced Digimon canon for years, right? Given that I asked that question, you have already seen the answer. For one reason or another, the Legendary Warriors as a group have not made any notable appearances since Frontier. The whole saving the digital world in the past is never brought up, or if it is, the Legendary Warriors are not used. At most, the group gets referenced by Agunimon and Lobomon, usually as Digimon you can collect in a game or two. In fact, the most recent use of the Legendary Warriors as of the writing of this review is that appearance of Cherubimon. And remember, Cherubimon doesn't make an appearance in Frontier. In fact, the only other notable appearance I can think of is Flamemon in Digi Destiny. It's odd because it feels like the Legendary Warriors were intended to have a lasting impact on the series. I mean, they're the Legendary Warriors. Of course they would be important. But instead, the group gets overshadowed by the likes of the Royal Knights, which might be a reaction to how well the series was received. Digimon Frontier wasn't well received on release and years later looked with disgust. It's considered the series that briefly killed Digimon, and given that it came after the better received Tamers and before Data Squad, it's no wonder Frontier's often forgotten about. There is still a fan base for this series, but it's not to the same extent to as what came prior or after. So I guess by this point, it's time to get to my final thoughts.
Get on your feet! We are leaving!
Are we home? Yes! Yes! Finally! I'm free from the digital world! Oh, you made it out. And just right when I was about to end this.
Is the series bad?
Yes.
Is the writing not that great?
Pretty much.
Is Zoe a problematic character?
Nail on the head.
I see. You got the main points, but I think I'm gonna add something.
Well, I mean, go right ahead. It's your show.
Yeah, so pretty much what he said. Frontier is not that great of a show. The story takes too long, the characters are mostly non-existent, and they have some neat concepts that were poorly utilized. Now, with that in mind, you're probably expecting me to say to not watch this series. And you are correct. Thing is, I learned something about myself when reviewing this. Often, I like to think that I am some authority on these things, that I'm a professor who knows what's best when it comes to these shows. But the thing is, Frontier made me rethink this. See, I'm a fan of Digi Destiny, and often I like to talk with the fans of the show. When I brought up how much I disliked Frontier, there were some vocal fans who defended the series, saying how if I disliked the show, why am I even watching it? I took offense, yes, but I was humbled. It made me realize just because I dislike the show doesn't mean everyone shares my opinion. And that's what these reviews are. My opinion on these shows. Yes, I don't recommend this series. Yes, I dislike the show. Yes, I would recommend skipping it, but that's just my opinion. I would say give the show a chance. You might dislike it, but then again, you might like it. We have to remember, Tamers was not well regarded because it changed the formula, but years later it gained a second wind. Frontiers was a reaction. It went back to what worked with Digimon and failed. But it did lay the groundwork for later series. The lessons learned in Frontier helped shape things like Data Squad, X-Cross Wars, and yes, even Aldamon. It's not a show I like, but then again, it might be a show you like. And I guess that's my final thoughts on this series. There may be seasons and movies of Digimon that people say are bad, but that doesn't mean you won't like them. Give them a chance and you may be surprised. As for me, I think I've done enough Digimon as of late. I do want to look at the movies, but I do hear Discotek is releasing a Blu-ray of them, so perhaps it's best I wait for those releases before I give them a look. And as for the recent series, I think I want to return to my roots. It's been a while since I looked at a Sonic game. And I do have a lot of firepower, so I guess a double feature with Shadow the Hedgehog? Oh well, this has been a Botluck Productions review and... What the? No. You were defeated by Alphamon. I saw it. Well, now you're in the mortal world. Guys, open fire. I will not yield. I will not yield. You must wait your turn. Irby. To think, all that was needed was an AC-20. Tell me, Irby, is there anything you want me to do for you? A review on the Battletech cartoon? Of course, but Sonic. You can wait? Well, I'll be. As I was saying, guess we're gonna go back to my roots. Back to Sonic Heroes. This, my friends, has been a Botluck Productions review.
What goes up must come down. Yeah, my feet don't touch the ground. See the world spinning upside down. A mighty crash without a sound. I can feel your every rage. Step aside, I'll turn the page.